What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Marten here at Data Dash, and today is February 15th of 2020. Well, folks, I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are. And in today's video, I've not only had the fortunate privilege to sit down with two individuals who I've been meaning to interview here on the channel for some time, but along with that as well, two individuals who I truly believe are shaking up the space when it comes to enterprise adoption of both blockchain technology as well as smart contracts. And that is no other than Stefan and Marten, who are the co-founders of Unibright, one of the few projects that I've decided to advise on over the last few years as I've worked in the cryptocurrency space. And it really stems from the original vision. When I first met Stefan and Marten and learned about Unibright's original vision of reducing the barriers to enterprise adoption of blockchain and smart contracts, I was instantly sold. And I've seen over the last 2 years that they've continued to deliver on that original vision. Now, we're going to be doing this interview with Stefan and Marten in just a moment, but I want to go ahead and give you all a brief overview of what Unibright's about and what value they bring for those of you who may not know what they're really all about. So, as you can see here, Unibright has a plethora of different areas where it's really trying to bring value, but there's really two key areas. The Unibright framework, which simplifies smart contract deployment, and then also the Freequity platform, one of their most recent platforms that helps to issue security tokens. So let's go ahead and just do a brief overview here. So for the Unibright framework, which is what originally made me fall in love with the Unibright vision, the Unibright framework's simple goal was to help remove a lot of the barriers for enterprise to deploying and developing smart contracts. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the key issues here. There's a lot of surface level issues that are very clear from the get-go. First off, if I wanted to maybe build a smart contract on Ethereum, I need to get a developer who can develop in Solidity. And during the time back in 2017 and 2018, it was very difficult, and still to this day, it's difficult to get Solidity developers because there's such a shortage in supply. So if I just want to get my feet wet, I'm going to be spending a ton of money trying to get a specific developer who knows this one specific language to develop smart contracts. But along with that as well, let's say that I was developing an Ethereum smart contract with my Solidity developer, and I realized that NEO is the better blockchain, or maybe EOS is, and they program in completely different languages for their smart contracts. Well, in that case, I have to go out and get an entirely new developer, and all that time will have been wasted. And along with that as well, it's very difficult to get any kind of reasonable value out of smart contracts, to follow the life cycle of that smart contract, and also see how it's actually taking actions on top of a certain chain, because there's no good explorers really for smart contracts at the moment. Well, Unibright fixed all of these key issues in the Unibright framework. They offered the ability to build templated smart contracts that didn't require a line of code or any knowledge of programming in these specific languages. And if you felt that you needed to switch chains, you could easily do so without, again, having to know a line of code in the other language. And the cool thing about it all is that you can not only get a lot of valuable insights from the Unibright Explorer that offered the ability to track the life cycle of the smart contract, but also they offered the ability to plug into traditional SAP integrations. So you could plug into traditional business systems to actually make more use of smart contracts. And this whole kind of framework was, again, what really sold me on the vision of Unibright and made me know that I really wanted to work with the project. But they haven't stopped at this. They haven't stopped at this amazing workflow model that the Unibright framework offers. No, they've also gone out and started to work on the Freequity platform. Now, you guys probably remember all the buzz back in 2018 and 2019 of security token offerings, how it was going to be a big revolution. And there's been a lot of security token offerings kind of happening in the background. But the big issue that a lot of people don't realize is that it's such a complex process. There's so many things to consider, from making sure that you follow all legal regulations, that you meet all compliance standards, that you issue your token properly, and along with that, that you've got liquidity for it. I think we all know that a token in a market isn't anything without a severe amount of liquidity. Well, all of these things are things that Unibright and more have focused on in this case to make sure that they can deploy successful STOs. So I really recommend you guys spend some time to do a little bit of research, to dive in a little bit deeper to what Unibright is offering here with its platforms. And with the recent announcement of the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance EMINENT Task Force, it's a perfect time to start picking up and learning about what Unibright is doing behind the scenes. They're not about hype, they're about delivering on real projects and bringing real value to enterprise. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive into the interview with Stefan and Marten.
What's going on, everyone? And in today's interview, I'm sitting down with two of my close friends who I've gotten to follow in the cryptocurrency space and work alongside. And that is Stefan and Marten, who are the heads behind Unibright, one of the projects that's really been taking the Ethereum space by storm, not only in regards to DeFi, but also bringing enterprise to the blockchain space through smart contracts in the Unibright framework, and so much more to come. I mean, there's been lots of things I think that Unibright has evolved on top of from its original vision, guys, and it's amazing to see how far you've come. So thank you both for making the time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, guys, we got a lot to catch up on, I think, in the sense of where Unibright's gone from its original vision. I spent a little bit of time just before we did the interview to do a little bit of a precursor as to what Unibright is and what it's aiming to do. But from the original vision, I think you guys can put it pretty good here. The Unibright framework was aiming to be able to provide a simplified way for enterprise companies to get past a lot of the barriers to smart contract adoption. So just as a simple kind of catch up, how do you guys feel you guys have done so far in achieving that vision in the sense of building a tech stack that works for enterprise? And then also, what's the current kind of scenario for the adoption rate for enterprise on blockchain?
Yeah. First of all, you summed it up perfectly. The first vision or the scope is still the same, so bringing enterprises closer to blockchain. And the promise of the Unibright framework is tackles that vision from a tool set view. So the framework is the perfect tool set to bring enterprises closer to blockchain. And the thing that we added like 13 months ago was more of a consulting side or education or explanation side to bring enterprises closer to blockchain by explaining the technology and the benefits to them first, so that they will hopefully all end up as users of the framework in future.
Yeah, and just to add the framework itself, as it is product ready for a few months now, it's been used by enterprises to connect their off-chain systems to the blockchain world, and it helps them greatly to define their processes visually and generate smart contracts. So in total, one could say that the vision has been brought to life in the product that can be used, but we are putting more into it, and this is where, for example, the EEA comes in.
Yeah, I really want to spend some time actually to dive into that topic of the EEA Alliance, the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And what I think is so cool about this new EMINENT partnership that you guys have built between Chainlink and AnyBlock Analytics is that you guys combined through the different areas where you specialize in are going to be able to remove a lot of the roadblocks for the Ethereum enterprise side of things. So I'm really curious to kind of dive a little bit deeper into where do you guys feel you fit in, I think from our conversations we've had in the past, but also where do you see that Chainlink and AnyBlock Analytics is really helping to aid in that kind of alliance?
Okay, so perhaps we start with Unibright. It's the easiest question. We were approached by the EEA for our integration expertise. So it's all about bringing in our knowledge on how to connect off-chain systems to the on-chain world, to Ethereum, and having things like off-chain computing added to it. So you can do things like have coding off-chain in SAP systems, for example, and then just transport the proofs of this coding being executed into the blockchain. So it's trusted off-chain computing. All of this will connect the off-chain world to the on-chain world. This is where we will bring in our expertise, and we'll work together with the partners on defining best practices and POCs. And about Chainlink, I mean, they're well known. They have the Oracle providing power, the big expertise in getting off-chain data on-chain. This is a vital part that is needed in the setup. And AnyBlock, I mean, they are big in analyzing blockchain transactions or big data in general. So that's something that is very much needed in the enterprise field as well.
Yeah, to kind of take it on a kind of bird's eye view, I think you guys are helping to kind of build out the entire package that enterprises need. I think on the side of Unibright, you have things like the Unibright framework, as well as the free equity platform, which I want to spend some time to talk about as we go throughout the interview. But I think you guys provide that feature of providing a framework to start building out value on a blockchain. I think Chainlink helps in the sense of being able to plug into a variety of APIs and data feeds to actually connect to the real world so that blockchains can communicate with the outside world. And then the third factor in the sense of AnyBlock Analytics, they're providing a way even deeper, I think, than what you guys have been able to do as well, on the sense of being able to provide an exploration of the blockchain, being able to pull real-time data from it. And I think it's so cool. It's like as if we're putting all these kind of strong suits of a lot of these projects into one single alliance to really get stuff done.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important to mention that this whole thing is built as a task force. So we want to move quickly and show some progress. And that's why we forced to build that initial setup by 3 partners bringing different views on the integration topic. But it's an open task force. It's organized under the main networking group of the EEA. So we're really excited about other partners to join. We had already many interesting calls after we announced this task force. So the initial setup of Unibright, Chainlink, and AnyBlock should only be the start, and hopefully we'll get many other players also from the classic ERP world, like our SAP background, and many other players into that task force. In the end, it's about building something, standards and definitions where we all can build our products upon. And of course, it's easier for us if we offer Unibright products like the Unibright framework on standards that we help developing than just waiting for some other teams to do it and then adapting. So we really want to drive things forward. That's why we joined this task force.
Yeah, to build on that, Stefan, I think the major thing to take away from that is what we've seen with Ethereum. And I'm so happy out of all the alliances you guys partnered with, you did it with the Ethereum Enterprise Alliance, because the biggest issue, I think, for kind of building that standard you're talking about that's going to make this much more streamlined is being able to have a sense of network effect and being able to have brand recognition. And when there's so much kind of scattered kind of competition in the crypto space where everyone's kind of working in their siloed objectives, it ends up that you usually don't provide the full package, and it takes companies forever to actually go through. I think a good way to kind of put it is, you know, taking it from the perspective of us in the space, we're looking at cryptocurrency projects and blockchain projects 24/7. We can't expect all enterprise companies to either hire talent or they themselves go out and try to understand all this by themselves. So I think hats off to you guys for taking that first step alongside Chainlink. I'm a big fan of the project as well. And AnyBlock Analytics seems like it's going to be contributing quite nicely as well. But I want to go ahead and dive a little bit more specifically into Unibright and talk a little bit about the Freequity platform. I think it's been a little bit quiet in the background in the sense of the kind of craze around STOs. It was definitely the buzz back in 2018 and a little bit in 2019 as well. So I'm curious to see what you guys are doing with the Freequity platform. I know some of the basics, but I know that this is probably the first time a lot of people are hearing about this on a deeper sense, in the sense of Unibright.
Yeah, tokenization was a topic that we met a lot of times in 2019, especially when we did workshops for interested clients. And comparable to the complete blockchain space, it often started like, well, you are Unibright, you can do something with blockchain. We do something with real estate. Let's just tokenize it. Can you program a smart contract for us? And our workshops always went in the direction that you have to see the full picture, and it's not enough to just take out one little piece of a process and directly make a business out of it. And that's how we felt that this whole tokenization topic is rather taking place again in silos and in isolated views on single aspects of a tokenization process. So we decided not to do a fancy marketing announcement like, look, now you have an STO template in the Unibright Workflow Designer. Hey, let's use that STO buzzword, but rather provide what we call a 360-degree view on it. So it's not only about the tokenization process, but also adds other components like liquidity concept, custodian concepts. We can talk about that in detail. But in general, our take as an integrator is to look at the complete picture and not only provide little parts and hope for the rest of the world to do the integration of it.
Yeah, I remember when I was talking to Rudd a while back, just at the kind of full scope of what you guys are aiming to try to do, and the sense of being able to build a 360 view. I think it's important because when people look at STOs, they usually simply think there's one or two steps to the process, but it's a whole plethora. I mean, especially when you're dealing with US regulators, there's so many different steps you have to meet in the sense of compliance in order to actually get something to the door. Not to mention as well, make sure that you have the technical capabilities to manage that token. When you deploy something on chain, you know, in that case, in many cases, it's final, it's out there, and people can start to own it. So that's the issue, is where you have to make sure you're compliant, you do everything properly, and make sure that the contract that you deploy is going to be sound when it launches. So I think being able to provide that templated framework with all of those things in mind is very important. So right now, where is Unibright right now in the sense of the Freequity platform? What's kind of the roadmap right now for where you guys are with Unibright?
Yeah, so it's a bunch of things we're doing. As Stefan already said, there are components like the liquidity component. This is something we really developed, and it's something that you can put on top of a token, and you've got liquidity pools, similar like Uniswap or Kyber networks. It's doing it, so you can guarantee liquidity for the token. Because what we learned in a lot of workshops is that there are so many security tokens that are being issued, and they won't all be on some exchanges and have big liquidity. So if you start thinking about the process, you soon realize that liquidity is something that is missing, especially for professional investors. And then we came up with the component where you can set up token pools and stablecoin pools, and you trade against them. So it's a technical thing. We built it, and that's ready. And I mean, the great thing is, a few days ago, we signed a contract with the token offering platform, and they're going to use our component to put it on top of their token offerings, so that the tokens can be traded against these pools, and liquidity is always guaranteed. So that's a technical solution. That's one of the things we were building. And just to add one more, I mean, custody solutions is something that is really important too for the widespread adoption of token offerings, we assume. So we're working on two different paths in custody, like having a solution that is centralized using hardware security modules, and we have a decentralized one working with multi-signature Ethereum contracts. So these are great techie things we're working on and offering technical solutions in the tokenization space. And of course, we have this great vision of having a compliant marketplace ourselves. This is more a long-term or mid-term thing we're working on with a consortium here in Germany. It's under NDA, we can't tell too much about it. It's something more where we could be an operator. The other things are more like being a technical solution provider.
Yeah, it's always exciting to hear how Marten is excited about the technical details, because we really love it. From a top view, it's one of the possible outcomes. There are two different streamlines. We are building different components of something that we call an integrated security token market. And it can be that parts of these or partial components are offered to other vendors as well. So we are basically a technical provider for a specific, like a liquidity solution. Or on the other hand, one of the streamlines could be that we all offer these services on ourselves once we made enough learnings from all the projects we're doing. I think what is really missing in the space is that somebody looks at it from a regulatory standpoint and not just for one component. One example, if you do an STO in a regulatory compliant way, let's say in Germany, then you talk to the regulator in terms of what does the token stand for, how it is designed, how are the terms that people agree on when they buy the token. But after that, going to an exchange with that token is regulatory, from a regulatory view, is a completely different approach. You have to have other licenses, you have to have other formulas and documents to hand in. The same goes for custodian services. So all these projects do something, but they do not really care about what the regulatory process of the step before was. And our idea is to have that regulatory scope always in the back of our heads and try to integrate again, these different parts. And I think the real power is when one of the components is providing extra power to the other components, and they are not seen separately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to build on what you said there, Stefan, it's basically, as you mentioned, going back to that 360 vision, making sure you have a full, clean roadmap that along the way, you're specifying what kind of token you're issuing, what you're planning to do with that token. And if you can get all of that, confirmed in that case, you guys are building the platform in this case to be able to just streamline that. I think for most people, it's so overwhelming just to think about what regulations does it involve when my token's on an exchange, what regulations are involved in what jurisdictions I want to participate in, what kind of regulations do I have to worry about if I want to issue this to retail or institutional investors. It's a completely different ballpark depending on all the different variables that can be at play.
Yeah, and we should learn from the past where ICO was the big thing, and in the beginning nobody cared about regulation at all, and many people were looking a little bit, I don't know, they made fun of us when we told that we want to make regulation first here in Germany and be compliant before we do any token launch. But I think all this experience and all this learnings we made helps us in seeing how a really regulatory compliant STO process would look like. And that's what we also try to bring in besides the technical expertise.
Yeah, we have the compliance first. So sometimes compliance drives business.
Sometimes it makes things slower, and sometimes
but for example, the liquidity thing we were building, I mean, we did it the way we did it because of the compliance demands. So we have these pools where we trade against, and we don't have an exchange where we connect buyers and sellers, which would be much more difficult from a compliance point of view. So it's very vital to have always the regulators' demands on screen and build upon those.
Especially what people often forget, they are so used to fast-moving cycles like weeks or months. But if you talk about a real STO, it might be that the underlying security is a real estate project going for, say, 8 or 10 years. So you should better not trust or put everything into a platform that just works now because they were not yet seen by the regulator. But perhaps the token is somehow regulated 1 or 2 years after the issuing, then all the token holders will have serious problems. So it's better in this case also, again, to learn from the ICO times and do it right. And that's what the vision of the completely integrated security token market for Unibright looks like.
Yeah, I guess it's fun. You guys were very clear about it. And Martin, I just, in the case that there might be some people who don't understand the term liquidity pool, I think very much it's going to be a huge component. The biggest issue is a lack of liquidity for security tokens. But what does a liquidity pool look like, and why is it valuable for a variety of companies who are looking to issue these security tokens?
There are many takes on it. The regulatory take is just one view you could have. I mean, what we also face with utility tokens, for example, trying to approach a specific exchange, is that the overall liquidity and also the overall volume of a token is always a key metric to decide for an exchange whether to list a token or not. But if you have a security token issuing for a real estate property that's worth, say, I don't know, 5 million, then every exchange would say this is a very small token, we're not interested. And on the other hand, token holders should have the main view on owning and holding a token because they believe in the security that the token stands for. So it might be that just from a 5 million property, only 10% of the token holders actually want to sell their token or get new ones. So this would be just an overall volume of 500,000, and that's not enough to approach the big exchanges. So you need a concept that works from the very first token, from the very first moment after the issuing, and guarantees some basic liquidity on the token from the very first day. And that's the real magic behind these pools, that you can set them up automatically, you can set them up during the issuing process. We added some simulation components to it so that you not just do something, but really can simulate the future performance of the pools against past developments on any other token that you want to use as metric. So it's a complete new way of thinking of liquidity, not in terms of let's drive the price like crazy, but let's offer some basic liquidity for token holders that want to go out of the project, for example, after 1 year. This is what the pool idea stands for.
Yeah, and from a business perspective, it's interesting as well, because all the trading fee that is being generated when buyers and sellers trade against these pools, so the trading fee stays in the ecosystem. So compared to a normal exchange, the exchange takes the trading fee away and it's gone, it's out of the system. And then you can have the liquidity pool operated by the token issuer, for example, and he collects the trading fee and could, for example, kick it back to the token holders or so. You have an ecosystem set up that somehow works for itself. So it's a very nice approach. And as Stefan said, it's a vital approach if you want to be sure that you can buy or sell into the token in 2 or 3 years, because if you don't have that guarantee, it makes it, in my opinion, hard to decide for a security token in the first place.
Yeah. And just to add one more thought, because we already mentioned like Uniswap or Kyber. So it's the same when people approached Unibright at the very beginning with our smart contract generation and asking us, well, there are other solutions, why shouldn't I use that existing solution? And again, it's always about integration. If you do an STO today and then approach something like Kyber or Uniswap afterwards, which is currently based on utility tokens, but that's a different topic, then you don't know at what step to start, because you had some regulatory process in the very beginning. You have perhaps asset managers that use their common system, perhaps it's an off-chain system, and then you would have to do everything again if you just use a liquidity component that's out there, but it's not integrated into the complete process. And that's, I know that I'm repeating myself, but that's always the view that we have to integrate things and to see them, how they work together and not isolated.
Absolutely. I think that's the cool thing. I'm a big fan of Kyber and Uniswap and a lot of the DEX space. I think it definitely at least removes the first initial barriers you guys mentioned from centralized exchanges, where they're kind of they're at the gate of determining whether or not your token's going to make it or not. And that's been a huge issue for this space because there's a lot of great ideas that don't get to blossom because of that. But I think you guys are taking it a step further. And when you can actually offer that in the full package of the 360 vision you guys have, I think that it's going to make it much more easier for not only people to generate tokens, but you're going to have a much higher success rate where you can actually get real market price discovery for these different types of assets that you're trading under security. So I think it's very, very fascinating to see that you guys have this kind of big picture view. I tend to try to approach things the same way. And you're 100% right, I think, Stefan, in the sense of what you guys have said throughout this. It seems that there's such an issue with just being able to provide that in one package and give a sense of professionalism that, hey, we'll walk you through this entire process. Blockchain and smart contracts, they don't have to be complex.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can even make the picture bigger and think about things like automated trading, so derivatives or portfolios, and then you need liquidity. Then it has to be guaranteed because then you have smart contracts trading automatically and they rely on always being able to trade. But that's even the bigger picture we are thinking about.
Yeah,
it's step 3.
Yeah, we're also discussing on how bringing all these ideas to the public. I mean, we will add dedicated blogs to the different blog posts to the different components of Freequity, of course. It's a lot of explanation, education, and also letting the people know, which is very important for us, that all these components have a huge integration potential. If you just look at it from a technical perspective, then all of these parts could be easily served by something like the Unibright framework. So, of course, this is our main goal in the long term, to strengthen the product portfolio that we have, also to work and integrate with each other. Yeah. So it's nothing that can be explained like this will happen in May and then in June everything is ready. But we are very happy that we left that that hype season of the ICOs behind us, and now are able to talk about mid and long-term developments.
Yeah, and looking at some components like the custodial thing, to be honest, this cannot be done only by Unibright. There we engage with a German bank, and we're talking with them because in the end, for some compliance reasons, you need some licenses.
You need to be a financial institute, yeah.
Yeah. Then there are some fields where you need a strong partner, and then we'll get a strong partner into it. So it's some business building involved too.
Well, Martin, to build on that point you made about the banking partnership, I think that it's important to note that I think to a vision, you mentioned, Stefan, earlier about being kind of like the hub to really make this take off in Germany. I mean, there was the recent banking regulation in Germany that allows them to hold depositors' cryptocurrencies. So I think you see a really generally kind of pro-cryptocurrency, pro-blockchain and smart contract narrative from German regulators, which is really exciting. I mean, it's the tone I got when we were working together very early on and learning about, the process for how you guys were going about it. It seemed like it was, compared to a lot of countries that I've seen that have explored this area, a very pro-cryptocurrency region of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to hear this from the outside. We have two opinions on it. There are days where we think it's great that we did all this stuff from Unibright from Germany, because there were many people telling us you have to go to whatever crazy island to do it, but we wanted to do it in Germany. So there are these days where we are proud of that. And on other days we think, well, why are they so terribly slow? Can they just not make a new law allowing us to do something more with blockchain? So it's, I mean, the truth is somewhere in between, but I think we can be happy to have the place where we are, because so many tech players are around us. We have banking centers around us, so it's a good position to be.
We're close to everyone in Germany, so to the regulator, to the lawyers, to the banks, so we can really build something here, and it's a good starting point.
Yep.
Absolutely, guys. Well, I think the EMINENT task force is a huge visualization of that progress, and I'm happy to see that you guys have made it so far over these past few years. Back in 2018, I can't believe we're getting to this point now where you guys are working alongside Chainlink, Anti-Block Analytics, and it seems like maybe this year we might really start to see that kind of S-curve of adoption into 2020 and 2021. for enterprise use case of blockchain. It seems like it's going to be on Ethereum, so I'm very fascinated to see how that goes. And even if it isn't, I know you guys have multi-blockchain support or multi-language support, so you guys can be able to program on a variety of different blockchains with the templates that you have. So it's a very fascinating range of technology that you guys have not only offered from the beginning, but I think as well you're continuing to build out your portfolio of tools to build value for the Unibright ecosystem. So just to kind of build on all the things that we talked about, guys, where could people go if they wanted to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing, kind of maybe to get started? And then also for those who may already know about Unibright, where would you recommend they go as well to learn about these kind of new topics and these new focus points from the project?
Yeah, of course, a good starting point would always be our website. We did a website relaunch in 2020, and so we sharpened our portfolio. Now we can, when you visit Unibright.io, then you see the 5 verticals we offer, with the framework being one, Freequity being one, the workshops being one, and we have venture capital as well. So this might be a starting point. Then we have a very, very good blog. Our blog posts seem to sometimes be a little bit long or techy, but they are very content-rich. Yeah, very valuable. We advise those very much. We have a very active community within Telegram, so everything is linked on the website. I think this would be the starting point. And
exactly,
yeah,
and of course, watching videos like this. I mean, it's always a very good take to have different explanations to different audiences, because we are super excited as soon as it gets techy, and then we sometimes lose focus that the one we are talking to might not be, I don't know, master of computer science, so we have to break it down to other points. This is also interesting within the scope of the EEA. I mean, working with guys from Chainlink and AnyBlock, they are all super clever, and it's really fun to work with them. And we think that for us, it feels way better than just announcing partnerships or something without actually knowing what to do. Now we really work together, and it's brilliant to see that there are some projects around with clever people behind it, and we are really willing to find more of those and work together.
Absolutely. Well, knowing some of the stuff, I guess, that you guys are working on behind the scenes, I'm very excited to be able to reach that day where we can talk about it a little bit more. And I know that I'll have to have you guys back on the channel to kind of keep up to date with that. But guys, thank you so much for making the time to just chat and stuff. It's always good to catch up. And even though we're on different corners of the world and stuff, from the US to Germany. So thank you all for making the time. I always appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was a pleasure.
It's my pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Great.